Good afternoon. So my name is Rachel Brown, and here is my ethics and worldview presentation of how I can look at ethics and worldview stances within the world, specifically of instructional design. So first off, I think that it's important for us to kind of define three key terms that we'll be talking about frequently within this presentation. And the first one of those is instructional design. So ADT classifies instructional design as the creation of learning experiences in a way that allows students or colleagues or whoever is taking the courses to actually learn, but then not only learn, but also apply the knowledge and skills that they're learning. This usually follows some sort of process of developing the materials, designing, using prototypes, and then finally presenting them to the people who will be using it. And this, as we've already mentioned many times before in this course, can be done through a variety of different models, such as ADDIE or the spiral, etc. from there. The next term that we really need to define is ethics. And this is a term that I feel like a lot of people use, but it's not always a term that it's known easily of what it means. So from Santa Clara University, which did a great study on ethics and has a great ethics department, they define ethics as the well-founded standards of right and wrong that prescribe humans ought to do, usually in the terms of obligations, benefits to society, virtues, fairness, etc. So, for example, before crossing the street, do you use the crosswalk or do you just walk in the middle of the road? For further example of walking down the street, are you going to wait for the green walking symbol to walk across, or are you just going to cut across? Things like that kind of really are able to define someone's ethics. And then the final one that we need to define is what is a biblical worldview. And this also Santa Clara University, I found a great article from them that states that Christian worldview refers to the framework of ideas and beliefs through which a Christian individual, group, or culture interprets the world and interacts with it. So my personal worldview may be very different than the person sitting next to me at church on Sundays, but we all have similar thoughts and values and beliefs, but we may think about them differently or agree on different things. And that's just the nature of being a Christian in today's world. So next, I kind of like to go into two Bible verses that I found that really pertain to this ethics within a Christian worldview. So I'd like for us to go ahead and look at each of those and then also look at some key takeaways of those. The first one here is James 1:12-15, and it says, "Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him. Let no one say when he is tempted, I am being tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, and he himself tempts no one. But each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Then desire, when it has conceived, gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is fully grown, brings forth death." So here's a couple key takeaways that I really found. The first one is that God does not promise that he will free us from trials, specifically moral and ethical trials, yet that he will help us through these trials that come our way. Sometimes, as previously mentioned, we're going to have ethical trials that come our way, and instead of making it a me mentality of, oh my goodness, I have this big decision to make, how am I going to make it on my own, etc., keeping going on, you can instead think, how is God going to help me through this trial? God's given me this dilemma for a reason. It's to bring him glory, so how can I bring him glory through this? The next verse I'd like to look at is just a short and simple one, and it is Colossians 3:17, and it says, "And whatever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him." And here's two key takeaways I found from this one, is that our relationship with Christ is not about a set of rules that we have to follow. Human minds could never make up enough rules to cover every possible situation. For example, in my mind, I could never have a set of rules for every single little thing that's ever going to happen in my life. Instead, we just need to remind ourselves to keep Christ at the center of everything we do, every action we do, every word we say, etc., and that way we can live a life like him, for him. And I really liked this quote that said, "Instead of living by a checklist, we are to submit to him in whatever we think or do." So instead of, as kind of the previous verse mentioned of James, instead of having that me mentality of how am I going to take care of everything, we need to instead think, how is God going to help me through these trials? Here's my references, and thank you, and I hope you have a great day.